G'day mate, 40 here. So when I was graduating to become an Alexander Technique teacher, I thought a lot about how I wanted to be the most awesome Alexander Technique teacher ever. Like I just wanted to revolutionize the whole field of Alexander Technique. I wanted to make the most dramatic changes with my clients. I wanted to set the world on fire. I wanted myself to be a good exemplar of the Alexander Technique. I wanted to be able to tune into what was going on with someone and to spot their interfering tension patterns. I wanted to have hands that could locate the unnecessary holding patterns in their body and help them to release it. So I was thinking, as you might expect, like very much in terms of ego, like what I want to accomplish with my Alexander Technique teaching practice. And I wanted to be awesome. And I still do. And I still enjoy having awesome clients, and I enjoy seeing them perform on Broadway or perform on TV or perform on the runway, or billionaires who are successful in business. Like I love success. I love being a successful Alexander Technique teacher. I love making a difference in people's lives. It's exciting to have clients that are doing exciting things. But I was able to relax, because I remember shortly before I became an Alexander Technique teacher, I was interviewing other Alexander Technique teachers, and there was this one guy said something really important. I think I was asking him, how awesome are you as a teacher? And he essentially made the point that his job as an Alexander Technique teacher is primarily to transmit certain principles, right? It wasn't primarily about what dramatic jolt people got when you put your hands on them, located the unnecessary tension, and helped them to let go of it. It wasn't about your charisma. It was about your ability to transmit certain principles. And I thought, oh yeah, the Alexander Technique is certain principles for movement. For example, as the Alexander Technique teacher Erica Whitaker said, if you're so absorbed in what you're doing that you can't stand up and walk to the window and look outside, you're probably in compulsion, right? If you're doing something so that you can't even take 5 seconds to stop and pause and look out the window, you may well have some kind of compulsion going on. And so one of the principles of the Alexander Technique is to stop, to pause, to notice what you're doing, and to open up a space for that freedom of choice, so that you're no longer just compulsively knocking things out. And so stopping and pausing and having a deep pause, right? And noticing the difference between when you're stopped and then when you're planning on doing something. So I'm planning on picking up this screwdriver. So right now I'm in a state of no planning. And then I think, okay, I'm going to pick up this screwdriver, and then noticing if I'm using unnecessary tension to pick up the screwdriver, whether my thinking and my whole musculature just kind of narrows down around the screwdriver. So learning to expand one's field of awareness. So notice the difference when I stand up and sit down. Like this is normally standing up, sitting down. And then I'm going to expand my field of awareness. So I'm going to see both sides of the room simultaneously when I stand up and sit down. So notice how I'm much more vertical. So I'm expanding my field of awareness. When I expand my field of awareness, all sorts of good things happen. When you expand your field of awareness, you're not living in the past, you're not living in the future, you're not living in anxiety, rage, depression, concern, fear, loneliness. You expand your field of awareness, and it just sends this upward direction through your body. And then another way to expand your field of awareness, aside from seeing both sides of the room simultaneously and everything in front of you, so having soft eyes. So being in a state of awareness, very different from a state of judgment. So you have entered a judgment-free zone. This is a safe space for you. No judgment here, right? I'm expanding my field of awareness, and I'm going to do some silent la-la-las. So unlike most breath exercises, the silent la-la-las begin with the exhale. They don't begin with an inhale. When you inhale, you don't want to be sucking in the air. You just want to let the air come in. And then it just transforms the quality of your voice. And then another great voice exercise I like is Boston. Boston. So Boston, where your lower jaw comes at the end of Boston, that should be its ideal physiological resting position. Boston. So a lot of people have bad TMJ. They have way too much tension in here. So Boston, down there, it's Boston. That's where your jaw should be resting most of the time. And another way to expand your field of awareness is to listen to all the different sounds. All right. And another way to expand your field of awareness is to be in a state of, I wonder what will happen next. All right. When you think about, I wonder what will happen next, you don't think about that and then go down like this and get all depressed. But when you think about, I wonder what will happen next, sends upward direction through your body, and you become more alive, more aware, more curious. I wonder what will happen next. Up you go. Then another great trick is to tell yourself, I'm not doing whatever it is that you're doing. So I'm going to convince myself I'm not going to stand up. I'm not standing up. I'm not standing up. Not standing up. I'm not standing up. I'm not standing up. And then just trick yourself and stand up. All right? I'm not standing up. I'm not standing up. I'm not standing up. And then boom, you just trick yourself. So you can do that. I'm not breathing. I'm not breathing. I'm not breathing. And your breath will come easier. When you go for a walk, you can say, I'm not walking. I'm not walking. I'm not walking. And your walk will become easier and more graceful. Everything you do, pretty much, you'll do better if you tell yourself a message, I'm not doing this. So I'm not live streaming right now. I'm not live streaming right now. I'm just talking to a friend. I'm not live streaming right now. I'm not live streaming right now. And somehow all the habits that we build, they don't serve us, right? All the habitual ways that we develop of doing things, they don't serve us. We are far better off unconsciously walking, unconsciously performing. Whenever you see a tennis match, right, usually it's the tennis player who is more at ease, who is more graceful, who's more likely to win. When you see ice skaters, it's usually the ice skaters who are most relaxed, most graceful, who are the most likely to win. Meaning graceful, relaxed, meaning very few interfering compression and tension patterns. So when I'm teaching the Alexander technique, it's not primarily about me. It's simply about transmitting certain principles and helping people to understand those principles and how they might apply for, say, their level of performance. So people tend to take Alexander technique lessons for one of three major reasons. One reason, to deal with chronic pain, which is created by unhelpful, unnecessary tension and compression patterns that they can learn to notice and release. So for relief of pain brought about by bad habits. That's one reason why people take Alexander technique lessons. And another reason people take lessons is for a higher level of performance. So when you let go of your interfering tension patterns, whatever you're doing, you can do it more easily and gracefully and effectively. Then the third reason people take Alexander technique lessons is for personal growth. You learn to notice your habitual patterns. So here's a chair. And you'll notice before you go sit in a chair, you'll start tensing and compressing when you're still a few feet away. So this is the typical person as they're preparing to sit in the chair. Like from here, they're holding their breath, they're making themselves smaller and tighter, and then they're just kind of collapsing into the chair. Right? So they're not even conscious of all these interfering tension and compression patterns that they're creating every time they simply sit down. And eventually these tension and compression patterns, they get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter until the tasks of everyday life become painful, right? Even reaching into the back of the fridge to get a soft drink, right, becomes painful. Reaching down to pick up a sock, it becomes painful, right? Because we just layer on all these compression patterns. And people, generally speaking, they don't want to do the subtraction of these unnecessary patterns. They just want to take on something new. They just want to say, oh, I'm just going to do yoga. I'm just going to do these new exercises, rather than looking at their interfering patterns of behavior that are not in their own best interests. And so too with being a sponsor. Like, I wanted to be the most awesome sponsor. I wanted to have sponsees that would change the world. I wanted to help bring about dramatic changes in the lives of my sponsees. I wanted to be a rock star sponsor. But that's just ego, right? As a sponsor, all I'm really trying to do is transmit the eternal spiritual principles found in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to whatever particular 12-step program that I'm talking about. So again, I can just experience my ego, and I can just feel it like a wind blowing through me, and I don't have to hold on to it, and I don't have to grasp it, and I don't have to berate myself for having it. But again, whether it's teaching Alexander technique or being a sponsor in a 12-step program, it just comes down to principles over personalities. So as a teacher and a sponsor, I'm simply trying to transmit principles to people. And it gives me pleasure to be of service to other people, but it's not primarily about me, right? It's not, I don't need to develop some kind of cult following. I don't need to have an indispensable role in my sponsee's life. Like, they rarely call me or text me or email me for advice, because I'm not primarily an advice man as a sponsor. I'm just someone who's transmitting the teachings of the big book, sharing how those teachings help my life and how they might help your life. So you'll never guess, I think this polo shirt, I think I've had it since high school. Right? I think this polo shirt is like 35 years old, and I've had various people who tried to throw it away. So my sister wanted to throw it away, and various women in my life wanted to throw away this shirt. But I've had this polo shirt since I was about 16. So I've had this polo shirt for 39 years. A lot of history in this polo shirt. Like Holly Randall used to wear this polo shirt. Like, this was the in. This was preppy. Right? This was a big deal in 1982. You want me to let go of this perfectly nice polo shirt? Bro, let's talk about how to change your life with 3 daily habits. So addicts, and if you're watching this show, in all likelihood, you're an addict to something or another. So addicts are great at forming habits, and that propensity, when applied for the good, can be life-changing. So if you are struggling with addiction, you are excellent at life-changing habits. So here are habits to change your life. Put a priority. I don't have any. Oh, there. Okay, I do have some buttons. I still got the buttons. Right, this shirt's 39 years old, and it's still got buttons. There. Okay, now I'm a respectable Torah Jew. Okay, habits to change your life. Yes, time for a haircut. Prioritize learning. What are you interested in? What are you passionate about? Where do you feel you're lacking? All right? This is what you should be learning in your free time. So lifelong learning is great practice for mental health and agility, and it also ensures that you stay humble. No one can possibly know everything. And then number 2 habit for success, invest in your mornings. So there's a reason why morning routines are hailed by successful people all over the world as the key to unlocking your potential. You can spend your morning hours taking control of your day. The morning is the rudder of the day. So you can invest in yourself before you serve other people. So I take a cold shower, brush my teeth, make my bed, take my supplements, get on a 12-step meeting, get outside, get some of that early morning sunshine. And then final habit, invest in yourself. Take Alexander technique lessons. Wow, 6 down votes and no up votes. Principles over personalities. Come on, guys, principles over personalities. All right, addiction and estrangement. So I notice with a lot of addicts that they have been estranged from those around them. So the opposite of addiction is connection. So this is the dominant theme I notice among addicts, among people in the pornography industry: lack of connection, estrangement from family, broken friendships, broken community, whether it's religious, social, educational, political. All right, so tense relationships with siblings, estrangement from siblings, estrangement from parents. This is a dominant trait that I notice among addicts. So do the addictions produce these family problems and estrangement, or do dysfunctional families result in addiction? So addiction's not just about brain chemistry. The environment you live in is a factor. So some people can be sailing along perfectly fine, and then they get into a new situation that brings out their insecurity and anxiety, and suddenly they start using. All right, so the opposite of addiction is connection. I just notice that addicts dominantly tend to be estranged from other people, estranged from family in particular. They often tend to be like so into their hobbies, crypto, gambling, gaming, music. Like they'd rather spend time with their classical music CDs than with other people. They'd rather spend time watching sports than with other people. They would rather spend time meditating. They'd rather spend hours a day meditating and praying rather than being with other people. So a normal person spends like 8 hours plus a day around other people. So I remember there were stages in my life where I was only spending about an hour a day around other people. It was basically I'd go to synagogue, I'd daven, I'd study a page of Talmud, and I'd spend an hour and a half, I guess, every morning with people at synagogue. Then most of the rest of my day, I was alone. So I noticed that addicts get into, watching TV, watching movies, their substances, playing video games. They tend to be estranged from others. So the opposite of addiction is connection. Blessings and Shabbat Shalom.